All right, today we're going to talk about how to build multiple businesses and actually build businesses that enable you to go have adventures in your personal life, like go live abroad with your family. My guest today did that. His name is Derek Kalles. I'll tell you more about him in a second, so stay tuned.
Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we feature top entrepreneurs, business leaders, and thought leaders and ask them how they built key relationships to get where they are today. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corkin here. I'm the host of this show, and you know if you've listened before that every week we have smart CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs from all kinds of companies. And if you check out the archives, we've got Netflix and Grubhub, Redfin, Gusto, Kinko's, lots of great episodes for you to check out. And of course, this episode brought to you by our company, Rise25, where we help businesses to give to and build great relationships with people that matter to them. And how do we do that? We do that by helping you to launch and run a podcast that allows you to build relationships with people you respect and admire. So if you want to learn more about that, go to our website, rise25.com, or you can email our team at support@rise25.com. All right, my guest here today is someone I've been trying to book for over a year now. He's the founder and CEO of Kalles Group, Seattle-based cybersecurity and technology consulting firm. He's got so many businesses that I keep discovering new ones. It's like turn around the corner, there's another business there. But he started his career as a technology consultant at Accenture, and he's worked with a number of different major enterprises. And he's got a number of different businesses. He's got one in the property management space. He's got an AI sales space business. His main one is in cybersecurity. So we're going to talk about AI and how cybersecurity is being affected by that. And of course, as I teased in the beginning, the interesting is he up and took his family and went and lived halfway across the globe in Europe for a period of time, which I think is so cool that he did that. So Derek, I'm so excited to have you here today. You seem like an entrepreneurial guy. You seem like a paper route kind of guy, a lemonade set kind of guy. You said you were drawing up ideas for storage businesses when you were younger, which I don't know who does that. But what was young Derek like as a kid?
Well, you're going to get two different answers if you ask me or you ask my parents. And so, yeah, as a young kid, I was always looking for different ways to build something. You know, whether it was a spaceship, whether it was definitely the lemonade stand, the mowing lawns, helping turn around houses that were rentals, or I went to a conference with my dad who was in the real estate space, and somehow I got inspired that we needed more storage businesses that were easier for kids to store things as we collected stuff, and our parents would constantly try to throw things away. So I was, determined to build a storage business, and that continued into college, and obviously was embedded into my soul, and a part of my career here is always be looking for different ways to build businesses.
How much were you shaped by growing up in a business where your dad had a property management business?
A lot. And what's interesting is, my mom was a physical therapist assistant and helped mentally and physically handicapped kids in the public school. My dad sold real estate for many years. And actually, as I was about to head to university, he decided to turn this side business of his of managing all of his customers' properties into his primary focus in the property management space. And, and he did that as a time as I'm first generation to go to college. He was trying to support and help myself and then my sister be able to launch and go on to university. And I didn't understand that in that moment. But both my parents have a wonderful work ethic and a desire to serve and a desire to build. And that has absolutely shaped me in my adult years.
And you also started a salsa business? Not talking about salsa the dancing, but salsa the condiment that you put on tortilla chips.
Yes.
Yeah, because when I look at you, I think salsa business naturally.
No, of course. Me salsa dancing would be a scary sight to see. But in terms of salsa, the edible food, when I was at school, was in an entrepreneurship class, and we had to launch a business, and we took this family recipe and turned it into a salsa, and we called it, we brought tomato and pepper together and called it Tom Pepper Salsa. And we ended up actually getting it into a dozen stores in the Seattle area.
Wow.
And it was one of those experiences we learned the heights of success, and then we had some dysfunction as a team.
Mm,
How often does that happen in business and
yeah.
partnerships and learning the different needs of different people? And unfortunately, the business didn't persist, even though it really should have. And it's been fun as adults. I've have stayed connected with most of the people that were a part of that class and in that team. And we all kind of, even actually in the last year or so, reflected back, what would have happened if we had kept Tom Pepper Salsa going? And we all laugh. Well, if you hadn't been, idiot 20-year-olds, we probably would have been able to do it. So,
Yeah.
but we had to pitch for funds, and we got some seed capital between the University of Washington and a couple local banks. And, that was my first experience in maybe a more classic or formal business, having to establish, in corporations, marketing, sales, going out and meeting with, the heads of grocery stores, having to learn production, having outsourced production, safety. There was just
Right.
so many dimensions I didn't fully appreciate at that moment that helped me fast forward when it was time to launch my next business, how that helped shape me.
Right. Right. Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about Kalles Group. So Kalles Group does cybersecurity.
Mhm.
And you launched that in 2011, 2012 timeframe, after previously working at Accenture. Um, Tell me about the vision behind it. Why did you decide, you got a successful job at Accenture and all that kind of stuff. Why do you go out and start your own thing?
So the origin story has a little bit of a hop from Accenture to that. So I had a wonderful experience working at Accenture, and then just realized it was time for me to move on. And I actually, before I got to Kalles Group, um, I partnered in with my dad back into that property management business. So he had kind of scaled it up to a point where, but it was him, an assistant, and a filing cabinet. And I still remember sitting across the table from him going, wait, wait, wait! I sent you to college to go do all these things, and now you want to come back and work with me in this business? What are you
So,
talking
so,
about?
so it was your idea. So you'd worked at Accenture, and then take me back to it. So like you'd worked at Accenture, and then you go back to him, and you say, "I want to work with you," even though it was a pretty small business at that point.
Yeah, there was I could just I had this moment where I just loved the people I was working with. I was doing interesting work. I was in a great organization, and there was still something missing. And it was
Mm,
kind of that moment where it wasn't them, it was me.
mm,
And I was kind of ready to go build things myself, and
mm.
and I didn't have any other ideas, and I wanted to do something. And I've always been around real estate. At that point, I'd already bought real estate and work, kind of turned around a few houses as a kind of a side thing while I was at Accenture. And so I came to my dad and said, could we partner into this business, and let's go out and buy some other companies, bring in some technology, build a hub and spoke model, and kind of scale up the business. And
And
that's
what
what
did he
we
say when you came to him and suggested that?
I think he told me no about 5 times, and then
Okay.
then the fatherly instinct kicked in and said, "I'm never going to be able to get my son to leave me alone until I say yes." And so, and through that journey, lots of highs and lows. Still have a great relationship with my father. I have that
That's
experience
good.
of doing a family business, and through that experience, the business got to a point where I was missing something, and it was the technology side. And I was seeing many of the security implications in that business, because we were kind of ahead of some of those elements, both internally facing, but also the type of customers and investors. We were seeing the privacy challenges. We were seeing the cyber dimensions start to start to set in more.
Hmm.
And that's where
And this
Kalles
is
Group.
2008, 2009, 2010 timeframe
So
when
we watched that bottom. So I mean,
yeah.
we managed and grew, the property management company through those really, really tough times. And kind of when there was a a a little parting of the clouds, it was just a moment for me in my career to stay involved in that business. So I didn't, I moved to a board position versus an operating role position, and kind of worked out so that I could go and, launch, launch Kalles Group. And
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 that was
how did you manage to move yourself out of that without one, it collapsing, and two, without, it getting pushed all back onto your dad, or it, reverting back to the way it was before? Did you put someone in place?
Yeah, I mean, it was a hard, there was mistakes made. It was not a perfect journey. And there was me, my father, and another partner. He was looking to exit as well, so we kind of exited him and kind of structured a deal so that we could have a general manager in the business and partner with, with my dad. And then there was a 2 year period as I was starting Kalles Group that I was still keeping a pretty active hand in the property management business to do some succession work to kind of set that business into its lane. That's a rabbit hole that can go very deep. And there were some things that were done well. There were some places where, recognizing what it means to be starting a company and trying to,
Yeah, manage the old one. I was
operational.
gonna say, like, that's hard, right? Starting a new company in a new industry, plus like your foot still on the old one. That's a difficult dynamic.
And not to sound like, the old guy, I don't think I could have done it if I had had kids. Like this was
Yeah,
still pre-kids and I was working a ton to make that all work. And but you asked about the vision of Kalles Group. It really was that thesis of, great consultancies are, good problem solvers, easy to work with, and they are, flexible and malleable to meet whatever the gap is for these, for organizations. I'm like, that's the root of what consulting and professional services is.
yeah.
And I wanted to bring that security lens to it. It started. It's our very. I love telling the story. Our very first project
This is for
was
Callis Group.
for Kalles Group was a
Hmm.
security operations project. Like it was helping optimize security operations in a large organization. And, through that, the, the outward facing of the business to kind of, how much do we play with the word staffing? How much do we play with the word consulting? Do we help, build teams because we're great at building teams, or do we just go do project-based work? All of that was an evolution.
Yeah,
But we never lost the thesis of security, and we really never lost the thesis of the core values of integrity, purposefulness, and ownership. It's kind of like that old quote. It's easier to write something longer than to
yeah,
write it short. And I didn't have time to make it short. There was a lot more words in the beginning to now where we've landed and
right.
having that real focused thesis on securing the future for all. And we actually have recently built a supporting sub brand in Kalles Digital to kind of support the more transformation component of it, because I think our special sauce is we're human centric, even in the world of AI and automation. Putting the human in the middle when it comes to security, so that we can also traverse how do we empower people, how do we empower processes to make security a part of the daily life and the transformative element of a business versus just, big walls. Let's put up walls. Let's slow everything down.
Yeah.
And that was a
Yeah,
little, that
and
was
and
a
that's
little,
a great tension right now because we were talking before, and I've installed OpenClaw on my computer not too long ago on my phone, actually a VPS, and I access it through my phone. And this has been a hot thing the last
yeah.
month or so, a really big topic, but also a lot of security concerns, and so like as we move into this new world with AI, there's new security concerns that are coming up.
Absolutely. And that tension is not gonna go away. And I mean, some of the thesis of what we were just talking about date that back 5, 6 years ago. I mean, this message has evolved, incrementally, but now bringing that message into today, right? Of how is security transformative, and recognizing that what's transformative now is, with a rocket engine, attached to the back, versus what it was even just 5 years ago. So, you brought up OpenClaw and the wide aperture by which it consumes data, by which it, creates its powerful capabilities. These are things companies have to wrestle with, and
Yeah.
where they fall in the spectrum of risk tolerance. And the answer can't be no. The answer has to be yes, and how.
Mm,
That's the realities that we see, and that comes in different. We can go a lot of places with that, but I think
yeah.
these first order principles on democratization versus control, speed versus risk, experimentation versus standardization,
It is
productivity gains.
these
It's
things are
huge
showing up
things.
so much. It's crazy how much these things are coming up. Even like just in the last week, there was this friend of mine who works at Meta, and I sent it. He hadn't even heard of this, but there was this thing that went viral on Twitter that this woman who was like head of AI and security, some security role in AI at Meta, had installed OpenClaw, which was then gonna like delete her entire like inbox or something. She wasn't quite sure why, and she had to like run to her Mac Mini to like unplug it to prevent it from happening.
Oh
She had
no.
tweeted about this on a Sunday night for some reason, had shared this, and then went viral, of course, right? And that's at Meta, right? You know,
Yeah.
and then same group of friends, this other friend who works at a company that's kind of like a fintech company, she was telling me about how she's testing around with like ChatGPT and stuff like that, and of
Right.
course registering like free accounts. So I think what we're seeing right now is a lot of workers and people like that are, if their employer doesn't give them access to these tools, they're going and doing it anyways, but they're setting up a free account. They're uploading maybe some sensitive client information, right? And that information is going to be used as training data and be publicly accessible. So these are all things that are happening in real time. It's wild.
Mhm. Well, and that comment of centralization versus democratization, it is real. And when I'm talking to technologists that are, maybe 25 years into their career, we talk about pre-SaaS, SaaS, and now here, you say there was a central administration that was just built into architecture and the thinking that went into even these technologies, even when we moved to the cloud, right? There was
Yeah.
still this centralization, platforms, whatever we'll call whatever striation of AI that we're talking about, because there's lots to it, is they're not built that way. Like they are designed to empower that end user, whether or not you want to or not. So when
Yeah.
we're talking about, hey, how do we bring, governance? How do we bring risk decision making? How do we capture this productivity that everyone loves to share and talk about, but still not show up on the cover of the Wall Street Journal? This is what executives are having to wrestle with, and that's where I really bring it back to, it's yes and. You're not going to be able to say no to AI. You're not going to be able to say no to security. We know that. You're not going to be able to say no to product advancement. You're not going to be able to say no to your people. Like
Hmm.
to the example you just said. So what do we do? And that's where it comes together, is bringing that flavor of how you manage the ongoing journey of bringing AI and the flavor of AI, right, into your
Yeah.
organization. Is it a GPT? Is it just chat? Is it, true agentics that is handing off and orchestrating and talking to one another? Like what are we really doing with it? And those are some messy conversations in my business right now. And there's no one size fits all.
Is it challenging for you or you as a company to stay abreast of all these things? I mean, the pace of new announcements is just wild.
It's funny. My earlier, I was having a virtual lunch with one of my team members on one of our larger accounts, and we were having just the same conversation of how do we better share and collaborate. Is he's actually running an AI productivity project for us for some time now. Is how do we stay on top of it? Because the answer is we can't.
Mm.
And what's I've noticed is an interesting sentiment, whether I'm talking to a CISO, a CIO, a CTO, is that anyone says that they're the pure form expert and on top of all of it, is probably not being truthful, because
Mm.
really the
Mhm.
greatest amalgamation of knowledge around AI and what it can do, whether we're at the LLM model, we're at the agent building mode of the IPOS level, like it's a collection of people and organizations. It is not,
Yeah.
this is the one. So for us, it's trying to stay focused on how cybersecurity and how security shows up in AI, and then that connection point to how being secure with AI connects to those kind of cultural motions of bringing it into the organization. We are not going to purport ourselves to be experts in all things AI. It's more of, you know, how do you bring it in a pragmatic fashion that is demonstrable versus just, ooh, look at
Yeah.
this bright, shiny object.
Well, what you're describing to me sounds a little bit like kind of like a consultative role, like where you need to like just talk a lot of these things through with your clients. Are you finding that that is the case now that you're having to do a lot of those sorts of things, like just hold their hand and help them think through these things?
I think the framing is one of the bigger value adds. People want to jump right into the technical bits of like, well, what about this tool? What about this? How do we connect this? How do we get our underlying data to work right? How do we stay compliant? How do we get compliant? And those are very, very important things. But depending on the elevation of the organization and the size of the organization, just helping frame it,
Mm,
frame the conversation around the right thing, going beyond even, well, what's the use case and the value, right? Like it's okay if the use case and value is there, can we get there?
yeah,
How do we get there? Is it going to be all different by the time we get there?
yeah,
Oh, interesting, right?
yeah.
Like, and kind of getting really trying to land on some of those for what are the first order principles that you are really care about? And you can't have a list of 50 of them, right? And they can't look like they just came out of a textbook. Like we need to say, here's the three things that are non-negotiable as we just navigate all these unknowns because you're not an expert. I have flavors of expertise,
I mean, even the
but
biggest experts don't know right now, you know? I mean, some of the biggest experts out there don't know. Even the Dario Amades, the Sam Altmans are saying that there's a lot of unknowns that they're considering everything that they know. We could talk about this all day, I'm sure. But
yes,
another thing,
yes,
there's a
we
couple other
could.
things I want to move on to.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so one thing that's fascinating to me about you is that you run four different businesses now. You got a couple other ones, so I want to make sure we spend some time on them. One of which has been, in your words, a bit of a challenge. So Field Notes
Yeah.
AI. So what was the original vision behind Field Notes AI? And take me through a little bit of the struggles with that one.
When I came out of university, I knew I was going to be that person that never knew what he wanted to do when he grew up. That hasn't changed, 20 years later. I am still that person and very, very curious sometimes, very much to a fault at
Yeah.
times. And just like, my father's influence on me, I've had a strategic partner, an investor, who has been instrumental to me, in kind of capturing opportunity with people that you really just want to be around. Like you get one chance at this rodeo. Like work with interesting people, work with people that you care about, work with people that when those hard times come, you can partner through things, right? And Field Notes was one of those. I really wanted to learn how to build SaaS software. There was a couple friends of mine that we had been working together and even been customers and helped, and done a number of venture things together. And we saw some real gaps in capacity and resource planning. So kind of PPM, so project management. That's where it started. And then it evolved upstream to realizing the data capture challenges of even making software like that work, which are the classic garbage in, garbage out that you see in CRM. And then within that, we pivoted even more to realizing there's some lightweight CRM and like pipeline activation we could do. We were like officially turned away from PPM into this. And then going, wow, why are we having humans do this alongside of a light piece of software? How do we get AI to help? This was starting some of the early, even pre-agentics, like how do we get AI to help us, machine learning to help us? And so, I mean, the business on its fourth pivot, the primary CEO, Keck and founder, they're doing a great job continuing to innovate in the space. It got further away from where it started and, really into the sales and marketing space, which isn't, obviously I have sales and marketing in my ventures, but it's not my expertise and he has built that. And so, I still am a part of it in an advisory role. But again, it's one of those journeys where, you know, you started here, you had some personal growth ideas and great people and saw some market fit, and then you realize you didn't have market fit or your capital structure wasn't right, or oh, could be a better place to go. And the journey is never linear. It's
Yeah.
never,
Right.
X marks the spot. And I should say never. And more times than not is not,
Rarely
at
is.
least in
Yeah.
my career. And some, you know, still have good, strong relationships there and some incredible learning lessons that I have shared with many of folks on, how to bootstrap, how to build ventures, when to think about, bringing in venture capital. Like how does that work? And, how do you stay true to just working with really, really interesting people that you care about in this, this
Yeah.
this journey of life and entrepreneurship?
All right, you got a couple other businesses. We don't have to go through each of them, but at least four. How do you manage all this? How do you manage to keep an eye on each of these as different ones are undergoing pivots, different ones that require
Right.
different amounts of your energy and time?
It sounds like a cliche, but there's very personal truth in it. When you work with great people, you can um, you can build systems and processes around that to operationalize and sustain businesses. So, I built another, staff. I built another consulting company out of Kalles Group in the finance space with a an incredible team member, an employee, and help partner in to have her be that CEO and run that business.
Mm.
The property management business is still in my portfolio, and I've brought in some key team members and other partners that I've already worked with into that business to help my dad, who has now officially retired, which is fantastic for him.
Mm.
And, he's built a legacy in helping establish that business and the influence it had on me. And, um, you know, the, the field notes journey along the way, Kalles Group, you know, and here I am again looking at, founding another company, truly in the agentic AI space. And I'll keep that one a little coy for the moment. But, I think part of the exciting part of being an entrepreneur, and I've gotten involved in the University of Washington is launching an entrepreneurship through acquisition program and curriculum. And that's
Oh
where I'm
yes, yeah.
putting a
Walker
lot of,
Dybel wrote the
yeah,
book on that. Great guest on this podcast.
yeah, so I'm, leaning into that space as kind of a philanthropic back to my university and helping, both, younger entrepreneurs as well as seasoned professionals that want to step into the world of entrepreneurship. And I just, when people ask me like, what's my core thesis, it's always be building and doing it with people that I'm going to be proud to see them, have successes and have wins.
Yeah,
And that's what I try to stay close to. So managing that portfolio is not easy. It's hard. And but I think if you have great people and you recognize you can't be the hero, you really got to fight that hero syndrome
yeah,
and be okay with things not being done always the way you want them. You've
yeah,
got to,
yeah,
and that's a daily thing. We,
yeah.
we all have ego. We all
Right.
and we
Yeah.
show it up in different ways. But you
I
gotta face those things down.
I want to ask you about
So
you mentioned that earlier in your career before you had kids, it was easier to put in the hours to have your foot in different places. Now you have your foot in four different places, possibly starting a fifth, but you have children. So how has that shaped you or changed your approach? How do you manage it now that you have kids?
mm, yeah, it's I mean, none of it would happen if it wasn't for my wife and partner in crime. So
Yeah.
there's an important partnership there, and across all three of my kids, it's it has changed some of those nuanced time management skills, some of that what's the focus, where do I have to let go of things more.
Hmm.
Technologies like agent, AI have helped be able to move faster and move quicker through, ideating through things. But the rhythms of your day and the rhythms of what's negotiable and what's non-negotiable just become more heightened. And
Yeah.
those trade-off conversations are, more finite. And so I wish I had a perfect system. I think there's lots of incredible literature out there, Atomic Habits, down to, well, there's just so many I could list. But
Yeah.
I think you have to find what works for you and how your family rhythms, how your work rhythms, like when and I think the last thing that I would share is just one of my hacks is really realizing the time of the week or the time of the day where certain work best fits. And if at all possible, I try to fit into those. If I am working on something that is more greenfield or thinking it is better for the morning, if it's
Mm.
just working hard on a bunch of things, that can always be in the afternoon.
Yeah.
If, kind of like the time we're talking right now is a time where I'm on my best, like ability to speak, hopefully
Yeah.
clearly. We'll have to see what the audience says, but like, because I am a talker, is like kind of picking those spots and being okay, honoring yourself to go, hey, certain times of the day and certain
Yeah.
moments, are better for certain types of outcomes because you just don't, it's not an unlimited capacity because
Yeah, yeah,
I
it's funny you
want,
mentioned that because I love doing podcast interviews in the afternoon because to me it's just a conversation, right?
yeah.
It doesn't require super hard thinking. It's just two people having a conversation. And you
Yeah.
mentioned Atomic Habits. James Clear was on my podcast way before he published that book.
Oh,
The book has
nice.
been a phenomenal success, of course, but I mean, credit to him. I mean, he really like for years was writing for his blog. JamesClear.com was just writing about
Mm,
habits, and even before that, had blogs previously that weren't even about habits or about different topics. But he put those pieces in place, which is so he really deserved all the success he got with that book. But I want to ask you about I previewed it at the beginning. You went to Spain actually
yes.
for a period of time with your family. How long did you plan that in advance, and what was that experience like being able to like go off and do that with your family?
I mean, it's akin to the entrepreneurial journey. Where it started and where it landed were two different places. So,
Yeah,
it was inspired by a number of folks in a business group that I'm a part of, entrepreneurs organization,
yeah,
listening to some of them do it, having done similar things in their journey, or ones not doing that and regretting it. And and then COVID happened and some health stuff happened in my family, and you know kids get older, and the time frames by which you
yeah,
can navigate it changed, and then there was this moment of just it was on our bucket list for a reason, to immerse our family, immerse our kids, immerse myself as a professional in a foreign speaking country for a reason.
mm,
And sometimes you have to just say, I'm going to do it, and I'm just going to
yeah,
back into how to make it happen. And that's what we did. And we went to and lived in Valencia, Spain, for a period of time. And I didn't work a full schedule, but part of the fun, and the family enjoyed it too, is dad would have his Seattle working hours, but in Spain, when I'd wrap up at 9-10 p.m. trying to overlay with Seattle hours, it was perfect because the whole family was ready to go to dinner. So,
yeah, yeah. They
we
do things
went
late
out to
there.
dinner,
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
I made sure my number one priority was being present there and
mm,
present with the family. And it challenged me as a leader to be look at my leadership team and be more leadership led, not founder led, which is
mm,
a whole nother rabbit hole.
mm,
And that journey has opened my eyes on how I further have to be discreet in what I'm doing, and the trade-offs between ventures and staying hyper focused in the cyberspace with Kalles Group. It's just another one of those entrepreneurial journeys that happen to have a really great personal impact. It was an incredible experience. And I know it will have a lifelong impact on my children.
yeah, yeah. That's such a great story. You mentioned it kind of like there's a tension between. I don't know, you didn't use these words, but you have four different businesses that are pulling you in different directions. You got children pulling you, got a spouse all pulling you in different directions. How do you deal with that without there being, warfare between the different factions or jealousy or some kind of like bitterness that he's not as present?
Mhm. I mean, it's a tough question, and it's a great question. And I really draw back to some of those 1% concepts, right? I think when you are, I think certain motions in entrepreneurship really drive this. We need it absolutely right now. We needed it yesterday. This, rapid expansion, rapid, growth. Not all of the ventures that I'm a part of need that. Like you've got to pick. So I think one way I navigate it is kind of picking the spots from where can incremental change get us there, and am I okay with those timelines in partnership with those leaders? And then where do we need to go bigger and faster right now? And that's hard because I'm wired to go, let's do it all yesterday.
Right.
Let's go 100%. So I'd say some of the biggest tension is inside of me of going, okay, to navigate where I put my time, where time dollars go, it's thinking through that incremental change, versus, step change, and when one or the other is needed.
Yeah. Derek, we're almost out of time. I want to ask you a question I enjoy asking at the end of almost all these interviews. So I'm a big fan of giving our guests a little bit of space at the end here to acknowledge people who've been there for them, who've helped them. You've mentioned key employees you promoted and took more responsibility. You mentioned leadership teams. You mentioned your father. You mentioned key investors invested in some different projects. Is there anyone that you would want to acknowledge for being there for you and helping support you in your journey?
You know, I'm there's so many people, and reflecting on that in this moment, I think of obviously my dad, and his impact on me, and the opportunities that my parents gave me. I think about my spouse, Kirsten. I think about kind of key people in that journey point, Keck, Sean, John, Rosie, the list goes on and on. My entire leadership team at Kalles Group, Liz, you know, and so I think there is this collection of people that in this moment, in the question you're asking, it's an opportunity to just recognize in gratitude of there's so many of these people that every day make me better because of their greatness. And I hope I have that impact on them, but I need to reflect and thankful and be thankful that, you know, yes, my university, go Dogs. I'm a big University of Washington Husky fan. Hopefully that doesn't detract too many of the listeners here, but you know, gave me cornerstones to that foundation. But it's these people that have been a part of my world for so many years that really are the ones that push me, cause me to read this book, listen to this. No, Derek, you're not thinking about this the right way, and I, assuming positive intent, listen to them, and I become better because of that. And I think that is such maybe a part of the entrepreneurial journey that gets lost. It's that support network. It's that growth network. It's that entrepreneurs organization out of Seattle. So many names that I could list there. It really is, without those levels of community and connection, there's no way I'd be here or
Yeah.
be able to sustain what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm very active in EO San Francisco, and I
Yeah.
know lots of members of the Seattle chapter that are really great people. So you're really lucky to be in such a great chapter. Derek, where can people go to learn more about you and Kalles Group and check you out online?
Yeah, I mean, Kallesgroup.com is obviously gonna, drive you to the front side of our site, but then obviously on LinkedIn, I think, LinkedIn is a great place to connect with me and not only talk about the entrepreneurial things I do, but also the civic things I do, around the University of Washington or in the foster care system.
Hmm.
I just love talking to interesting people that are building things.
Yeah,
And like you and I have a kindred spirit around EO. That
yeah,
EO community is a global community, and there's
yeah,
just so many great connections. That's how I was. It's been wonderful meeting you and got connected with you. So I
yeah.
think those are LinkedIn's a great place to reconnect with me or connect with me for the first time.
Cool. All right, Derek, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.